Here's the first one. Are the dead conscious right after their heart stops, right after they die? Are they still conscientious? You know, there was an Irish cemetery, and there was a grave in it that went back hundreds of years. And on the tombstone, it simply had these words as the epitaph, "I still live. I still live." And an Irishman was walking through that cemetery, and that one caught his eye, and he stopped, and he looked at it, and you could see the question marks flowing out. And finally, he just blabbed out. He said, "Bejeebers, if you're dead, be honest enough to admit it. I still live." Is it true that we still live after this life? Absolutely. Are the dead conscious right after their heart stops? Absolutely. You never lose consciousness. In fact, from the moment of conception, you never lose consciousness. Truth be known, you have a body that's going to go back into the ground, a body that's going to die, but the soul never does die. The soul never loses consciousness. We've had many a funeral here at this church where the casket sits in the back there, and I'll walk by, of course, recognize the person that I've known for years, and the top half is open, and there they are, but that's not really them. That's just the tabernacle they used on this earth. That's just the motel they stayed in temporarily. But that soul is checked out. And that soul never loses consciousness. In fact, every night you go to bed, you sleep, you slumber, you slip into a state of dormancy, and that's your body. But inside, you're still dreaming. That's your soul. The soul never sleeps. It's on steroids. It's hyperactive, and it continually is thinking and feeling. And so you never lose consciousness even after your heart stops. And we find there's two men here. They live parallel lives, and they both die, but that's not the end of them. We find out they're still alive. They're speaking. They're thinking. They're remembering. The real them, which is your soul, is still alive. And we find so many examples of this in the Bible. You know, I was having a Bible study with somebody yesterday, and I mentioned the story of Mount Tabor and how on top of Mount Tabor, Jesus Christ took the inner circle, Peter, James, and John. And there on the top, those three fell asleep as Christ is praying. And when they wake up, they see Jesus, but it's not the old Jesus. He's as white as the snow. But they also see two of their Jewish heroes that they had learned about as boys in the synagogue, Moses and Elijah. Well, good night. We find that Moses and Elijah had lived hundreds of years earlier. But they're on the top now of Mount Tabor, and they find him making this appearance and talking with Jesus Christ. And here's Moses. He's alive and well. And they're even talking about Calvary because they know even what's going on the earth. More about that in just a moment. They never lost consciousness. They'd been alive and well those hundreds of years, and there they were. You know, in the book of the Revelation, we find the last 7 years of human history given here on earth, and there's a lot of stuff that's going to go down. It's going to be chaos. It's going to be a bloodbath, and literally heads are going to roll as the guillotine is resurrected. And we find in Revelation 6 that there are some martyrs, some Christians that are beheaded for the faith. And we find in verse number 9, John says, "And when the angel, had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth?" Are these guys in any state of soul sleep or dormancy? No, they're alive and well. They had been beheaded on the earth, but their souls soared to glory. And there they are, these tribulation martyrs, and John sees them. More about that in just a moment. What kind of body did they have? But they're talking and they're saying, how long is it going to be until you avenge our death down there? So they know what's going on back on the earth. And so are the dead conscious right after the heart stops? Most certainly, most certainly.